you die.
All right, we just listened to Boundaries' new album, Burying Brightness. So now we're going to talk about it a little bit. I will give you some track breakdowns and my initial thoughts and such. And then we will go into a deeper discussion with Jordan and give you some ratings. For starters, I will say that Boundaries is a newer band for me. They're a band I'm not sure if I've ever seen them live, probably, but I didn't know who they were if I did, and so I probably didn't pay much attention. I definitely haven't sat down and listened to any of their other discography, outside of like singles that people have requested. I know there's a music video when they're in like the White Room, which I really liked that track, whatever track that was. So this is my first time really sitting down with them, and I will say that I did like this a lot. It felt very... It was a weird mixture, okay? So, like, it was very Misery Signals-esque, but only, like, at times. It's a lot angrier, which is, like, what I've always said they kind of sounded like when I heard them, was very angry Misery Signals. It's a lot heavier, but it still has those pretty moments that Misery Signals does have, and still has like other actual like metalcore riffs and such that all at times remind me of even like Killswitch and stuff. So hearing that kind of spin on melodic metalcore, melodic hardcore blend, metallic hardcore, I think it really works out well for them. Especially with the lyrical content, which I'll go into all that here in a second. So yeah, here I'll start with the track breakdown, which I have a lot of stuff on here. It Begins, the first track. It's a nice intro track. Kind of reminded me, it felt like an intro track. It's the same length as all the others. Most of the songs here are under 3 minutes, which is really nice. That they're very concise. I feel like this album has a lot of meat to it for how short the songs are, because they don't feel short at all. I think it's the speed. It's very fast. There's a lot of fast parts in here. Even like the melodic parts are very fast feeling. So they really kind of fit in a lot of stuff in here. But I think it was a good intro track. Kind of reminded me of the intro to For the Fallen Dreams Changes album. Then we go to Your Own Murder, which is a very heavy song, which there's a lot of very heavy songs on here, let's be honest. And you get some melodic hardcore style Misery Signals chorus. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to just call it melodic hardcore. Don't correct me. Then you've got... This Is What It's Like, which is very interesting. This band has very interesting song structures. This one is one of the songs. There's multiple where they have their verses are like breakdowns. They have breakdown choruses, and it's just really unexpected, very interesting take on the whole chorus structure. Because this band really, in this album, there's not a lot of structure to the songs. They definitely change it up, and there's not a lot of repeated parts. Which is kind of, more of like a thing for, older metalcore bands, early metalcore style stuff. So it's really nice to see that. Even though they have like clean singing sections and stuff, they don't, it doesn't feel like it's built around, verse, chorus. And then again, with the next track, Heaven's Broken Heart, and it's another one with a breakdown chorus. It's really interesting to me, the way they do that, and you also get a lot more Misery Signals in this song again. No One Will Mourn. That one is the first one that started reminding me of Killswitch. It felt very, very like that style of metalcore, which again is just it's just a very interesting mix between. I feel like there's not a lot of bands that do that, between bridging that gap between like Misery Signals and Killswitch. I know they're not very distinct and far apart. It's just something I noticed, that they have commonality.
Misery
What are you gonna
switch engage.
Misery switch. Then resent and regret. This one has very soft. This is very it's the first like very soft track. There's a lot of they have a soft singing and soft cleans. Again, very emotional lyrics that you hear, and they have this nice dual vocal part where they have the singing vocals and the lead singers or the lead vocalist screaming at the same time, which feels very powerful. And then that goes into the next song, Realize and Rebuild, which I like the play on that connectivity there. The title tracks, there's Resent and Regret, and then Realize and Rebuild. So you see there's a lot of connected tissue here in this album, especially in the lyrics. So I like that. This song, Realize and Rebuild, has this nice spoken word section. It's again very Misery Signals. I really like that part, and they have the whole like this beautiful outro breakdown part where they have this chant chorus where they do we sing out of sync. Stuff like that really hits me when you have like a chanted repeated chorus, and it just fucking, that shit is powerful, and more people need to do that. I really like that track. Probably one of my favorites. My Body is a Cage. That one is arguably probably the heaviest song on the album, aside from the secret track, which is wild. We'll get there. There's a nice little interlude, a little electronic interlude, which I didn't expect. It was very drum and bass, and like very fast. It was missing a little bit of jungle in there. It would have been cool to hear some jungle in there, but it was interesting. And then It Was Built to Break, very fast and dark, builds up to an emotional bridge. I really like that one as well. It was very just, they just have very interesting song structure in here. Title track after that is another one. You just all throughout this album there's some really good lyrics, which I kind of had to decipher myself and read in some of the comments. They don't have lyrics pulled up for you. They don't have lyric videos, which I think is a very big misstep in this album, because I went back and read some of this shit and I started crying because of how like strong some of these themes are in here. So I think they really need to fix that. Not the band itself. I'm sure it's the label and all that, but anyways. Oh, and in that title track, actually, that's part of what I wrote here. The lyrics, when he says "the fire forgets what the forest remembers," I thought just like there's those like one-liners. They're just like super strong and just really, that's the kind of shit I like. That's why all my fucking tattoos are like that type of shit, where one lyric fucking stands out. And are really powerful. I think they're some really great songwriting here. Then that also comes with a piano outro into the final song, which is The Tower, which is this massive 10-minute song. Again, super powerful chorus with lots of singing, and then just again super powerful lyrics in there, man. Like I don't know, I keep saying it, but that's like a big part of it. He's like, I'm trying to remember what he says, but he's like he starts doing this really powerful screaming, and he's like, to all the people that kept me here, you helped me face my fears. Like, god damn, man, like that's the type of shit I like. And then it goes in this weird cerebral feedback loop, which is basically the newer version of silence for 6 minutes, and then it goes into a secret track where they just like, it's like blistering super fast. The dude, man, this dude does some crazy vocals. I don't know if they had some features. I don't think it was, because it sounded like him. It sounded like you could hear his tone, but he was getting some lows, he was getting some highs. Like I guess he just doesn't want to do that for the rest of the album. I could use it, but I think it's fine without it. I think, the way he does the emotion, I think it might take away from some of that if he played around with the vocals a little bit too much. So it's kind of just within this kind of genre kind of choice, I guess. But it's cool to see him flex a little bit at the end. Also kind of reminded me of Amir. And you can tell some of the lyrics are just like, they're like saying like "fuck you" after this big emotional song. So it's definitely a secret track. Okay, it's them fucking around, and it's fun.
I heard a lot of Amir on this album, actually.
Yeah, Yeah, well, okay, so
Especially those
that
breakdowns
was
with
one
those
of
ding,
the
ding, ding, like,
that was one of the
you know.
connections. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. But so yes, well, I'll get to my little points here. Very nice tone. Love the guitar tone. Um, it could get a little bit muddy. But again, I think that's kind of more of a genre choice because it's not always muddy. They have the muddy sounds and then they have the very pretty melodic stuff. So it's a nice little balance that they do have there. Again, I already spoke on the random song structures. Just you don't really know what to expect throughout this album, which I think actually helps it. Again, because how short the songs are, they don't really need the structures. Like I said, there's a lot of meat here for those very short songs, which is really good. And again, just the overall theme of the album really stuck out to me. There's a lot of lyrics about loss, like losing someone, losing loved ones, and then overcoming suicidal thoughts and some honestly positive stuff in here. That's one of my favorite things about this genre is when bands do that. When bands have positive lyrics but sound devastatingly heavy at the same time. Like that's my favorite thing about this music is having that that emotion in there. So overall, I think this was really great. And I felt this was a nice bridge between. This would be like a mix of like Misery Signals and like Reflections, as some a little bit that I got there. And so as we transfer this over to Jordan and the deeper thoughts here, I wanted to say, how would you compare this to Counterparts? Because I know this is they're very similar. They're basically kind of the same style. I think this is a little bit heavier and angrier, but it's really the same kind of thing, which with a lot of the Misery Signals-esque stuff in there. I would say that I think this is almost a bridge between Counterparts and End is what I get from this. It's got a mix in between that. So what would you, before you go into your part, what do you think about that? What would you compare this to Counterparts?
I feel like they're very similar, but I feel like Counterparts was very dark lyrics with pretty tone, but this was like pretty tone with, like the other way around,
Yeah.
kind of, but also not really. It's kind of the same.
Yeah. See, because as I was listening to this, I kind of felt, how we listened to Counterparts, I was like, Counterparts, there was something about it, like it made me cry, almost twice. It was very strong, but I still gave it a 9 out of 10 because there was like something about it that there just wasn't a wow thing in here that got me, or in Counterparts, that just didn't. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't just give it a 10 out of 10. But I feel like this kind of has that. This kind of has that wow factor. So, continue. Sorry.
I feel like maybe you have that feeling just because this music is a little bit more varied. Counterparts, they kind of like the songs, they really have their flow and they kind of like feel very similar, and they have like those like one or two things like the breakdowns that set them apart. But this has like the music is like a lot more chaotic and stuff, so it's like it's
There's
got
a lot
more
of
of like
things
a
that set
wow
it apart.
factor. Yeah, it's got like more of a wow factor that kind of like sets it apart, like instrumentally and kind of like I guess vocally, but not lyrically. I feel like lyrically, like and thematically, they're very similar, but like everything else is very different. I'd say that's probably the connective tissue between the two is like the lyrics and the themes, but I feel like everything else around it they're kind of unique.
Yeah.
Counterparts, they also lean more into like the melodic hardcore. This I'd say they're like more of like the melodic hardcore side of Misery Signals, and then this is more of like the poetic side of Misery Signals with like those kind of like very pretty parts.
All right. So, what do you think about that album then?
Okay, so I okay. So everyone in the comments is gonna come after me, but I thought this was really good. And if you have a problem with that, you can come talk to me in the comments. We'll talk about it. But I thought this was really really good. Overall, like instrumentally and vocally and lyrically, I feel like um, it hit a little bit harder than the counterparts for me. So I think this is a little bit better than that. But without comparing the two, I feel like this on its own is just really really good, cool. It's very much boundaries, but they've definitely taken a lot of steps to like push their sound, and I really appreciate that, and I feel like they're definitely going in the right direction. They definitely made their sound a lot bigger and a lot more epic, and
Hmm.
adding those clean vocals and stuff. It really didn't hurt. I feel like it just really kind of helped a little bit.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't take those out at all. That's
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
that
And, like, it's
mixture that they
barely
have is
here,
perfect.
but where it is here, it's, like, placed there perfectly, and I feel like it accentuates the music, and they don't have, like, 3 choruses just to have 3 choruses and have the song be longer than 3 minutes, and, like, you really don't have to have every song be like that. Um, but that being said, I really do like the songs, that where they do have those kind of chorusy parts a lot, especially Heaven's Broken Heart. I really like the whole like breakdown with the clean vocals. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
really cool that they did that. It's kind of I feel like not a lot of bands do that, if really any right now. Um, and I feel like this also has like its influences on its sleeve, but they don't really fall on those influences, and they don't really rely on them too much. They just kind of add those in as like little tidbits and like little things that other people who do like that kind of music and who are into older kind of metalcore,
Kind of pick
they'll
up
kind of
on
see
it.
that
Yeah.
and pick on it. But at the same time, this still sounds really fresh and new. Um, so I think that's really cool, and I think the mix is really what makes it sound more modern and really has that uh, clear, like precise edge to it, which I think is really needed because this is really fast and there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you can hear everything. So I think the mix was pretty good. Um, I wish the bass could have been a little bit louder, and I think the kick was buried just a little bit. I think that could have came up a little bit, but otherwise, I think it was pretty perfect. The vocals were nice and punchy, and you can actually hear what he's saying for the most part. Like, um, I kind of looked at the lyrics a little bit. Not all the songs had lyrics yet, but pretty much everything I could pick it out, which is really cool. Um, I feel like whenever you do have those kind of like lower kind of mid to low vocals and not really a lot of highs, you kind of lose a little bit of like fidelity and like the enunciation, and you can't really hear it. But I feel like the mix is just good enough to where you can hear it.
Yeah, he does
Yeah.
he does all right on that end.
Yeah, and I'll say vocally, I think is really good. I do like once again that they did add those clean vocals in there, and the background vocals they really accentuate. There's not too much of that, but maybe he could have used a little bit more range. But I feel like you might have lost a little bit of the emotion from it if you kind of maybe added like some highs. But I mean, it is there. They did save it uh, for the little surprise
Secret
at the
track,
end.
yeah.
So that's kind of cool. So, um, yeah, overall, I think this is really cool. I don't think I have too many negatives. Really, I feel like I could have used maybe like another like interlude or something, kind of like in the first half, because the interlude didn't really come until like the end. But then
Yeah,
again,
it was between like
yeah,
8 and 9. So
then again, there was kind of an interlude at the very end, so it kind of did break it up a little bit there. So um, really think this is really cool. And people are probably gonna go in the comments and be like, "Oh, you only like it because it's heavy," but I really actually like the parts where it was like more melodic and where they had those clean vocals and had that kind of structure to it, without having like a repetitive structure. I think it really sets them apart from all these other bands because
Yeah.
not all these a lot of bands are doing that, and not a lot of bands are doing point A to B structures anymore, and it really sets them apart. Which, I mean, you could say it's kind of like a cliche, but I feel like this album really kind of uses those cliches in like very sparse moments where they kind of should be, and I think that's like kind of masterful. I think I actually enjoyed this a lot more than Counterparts, just because Counterparts, it did fall flat a little bit on the end, and this kind of really, other than the secret track, it really did kind of wrap things up, and it really got really melodic and
Yeah.
emotional towards the end, and they really ramped it up towards the end, which is really
Yeah,
good.
I think they conveyed a lot of emotion on this for like I said, how heavy and dark and angry it is. There's a lot of like really meaningful like feeling throughout it.
And they do it without using a bunch of cliches and like a bunch of like tired out lyrics, you know. It's very poetic and it's very like
Oh yeah.
heartfelt, and it feels like they actually like took time to put heart and feeling into these lyrics and like putting emotion into the music itself, and it really shows. There's moments where I was getting like goosebumps, man. Like,
Yeah, I think if they
I was
would if they
tearing
would have
up,
had
like,
they would have had some lyric videos, like I think this would have been like it would have
yeah.
really helped out a lot more.
I think my favorite tracks were Heaven's Broken Heart, Resent and Regret, Realize, and Rebuild. That was really good.
Yep.
Burying Brightness was probably my favorite song. And then I think the the secret track was also really, that was really good. So yeah, I think maybe one of the songs maybe could have left off, but that's not like a necessity. This album is like the perfect length, so
Yeah.
I think it's just good enough.
I think it was just because we had 4 minutes of that feedback loop, basically.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't really 4 minutes; it was like 2.
Yeah, they could have just had like a little bit more of like an interlude or something to kind of space things out a little bit, because it is so fast and there is so much.
All right, what would you rate this then?
I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10
Yeah.
out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really hit like emotionally and lyrically, and like the instrumentation is really cool and really fresh. Like, they don't really repeat anything, and there's not a lot of filler. It's just really straight to the point,
Yeah, like I think
without being like too short and without losing like that connective tissue in between. I feel like there's just enough with that, with the overall like themed and like the atmosphere
yeah.
that really ties everything together, and it really makes it a good album experience. Like, a lot of albums this year really don't feel like albums. They really feel like just a bunch of songs or a bunch of like 2 EPs, or and with like a bunch of filler in between. They don't really like take time to like make it feel like a complete package. But I feel like this band really does, so I think it deserves a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and like I said, reading those lyrics, just like there's a lot of like really powerful stuff in here, and just like not even just like the one-liners. You know, the one-liners are really strong too, I think, but like not even just that. Like I said, the themes and everything, and that like that whole song. When I read like half of those lyrics, and it wasn't even like it was about loss, but it was like very specific, you know, and about what I took it as is like someone possibly like a parent or something that abandoned him for what it sounded like addiction, which is very specific to me. I won't go into details. Not my parents, but yeah, I have kids and stuff, and it really spoke to me. And I think that plus just how like heavy and like, so if you want to come in and if you're not in the mood to just be like emotional, you could just come in here and still listen to it and just be heavy as shit, and that's what it is. And then if you really want to dig deeper, you get so much more out of it. So I agree. I think this is pretty much a 10 out of 10. I think this is some really good stuff here, and just like I said, had those wow moments, and there was multiple of them, to be honest. Honestly, with and I think there was a lot of it had to do with the clean singing. I think just it was really good use of that, and the mixture of that and the heavy vocals, and the lyrics and everything. That just that they had a really, really great combination, and they pulled it off. So yeah, you know, we hear a lot. We see a lot of comments about 10 out of 10s all the time, and we usually take them with a pretty grain of salt because a lot of the shit we listen to, someone says a 10 out of 10, we're like, that's a 6, you know? And
Yeah,
I heard
this is really fighting the top spot with Static Dress for me right now.
Yeah.
I feel like that one just hit me a little bit more emotionally, but this was like right up there.
Yeah.
It's really.
So this will be a good re-listen when we're coming back to figure out our top 5s and all that stuff. So great job to Boundaries. Y'all made a 10 out of 10 for both of us, so good job.